All right, friends, today our discussion shall be on canonical form and mixed marriage, or we shall discuss canonical form, mixed marriage, disparity of cults, and then we conclude with the canonical stipulation on polygamy. What happens when a man marries four wives or three wives and eventually becomes a Catholic, a Christian? What does the law of the church say about that? We shall conclude with it. And that was the question someone asked yesterday. Canonical form. Canon 1108, paragraph 1, is the canon that legislates on canonical form. The canon stipulates the following. Only those marriages are valid which are contracted before the local ordinary pastor or a priest. Please, when you hear the term pastor in canon law, it's not talking about a Pentecostal pastor. Pastor in canon law means parish priest. It's the same thing as parish priest, okay? Pastor is a priest to whom a parish is entrusted. That is pastor. Sometimes canon law uses parish priest, sometimes it uses pastor. Okay, don't confuse it. Uh, the word pastor now has become popularly used by the Pentecostals and the Protestants. The term pastor is used in the Catholic Church too to refer to parish priest. So only those marriages are valid which are contracted before the local ordinary, pastor, or a priest or deacon, delegated by either of them, who assists and before two witnesses, according to the rules expressed in the following canons, and without prejudice to the exceptions mentioned in canons 144, 1112, paragraph 1, 1116, 1127, paragraph 1 and 2. So the canon I just read gives us an understanding of what canonical form is. Okay, that's a marriage that is celebrated before the local ordinary parish priest or a priest or deacon duly delegated by either of them and before two witnesses. That is what we call canonical form. Now let us go to the brief history of canonical form. How did it come about in the church? Before the Council of Trent, the Council of Trent, took place between 1545 and 1563. It's good you have this in mind. Put it in memory. Some of these important councils of the church, when were they convoked? Council of Trent is good. You know that Second Vatican Council, at least these two councils, these are important councils in the church. Okay, so Canon 1545 to, between the year 1545 to 1563, that Council of Trent took place in the church. Now, the church, before this council, the church did not establish canonical form as a validity for marriage. Canonical form as a validity for marriage was first established by the Council of Trent. All right. So before the Council of Trent, nothing like canonical form of marriage as what makes marriage valid, as one of the elements that validates marriage. No. It started from this council, Council of Trent. And this was established in order to avoid clandestine marriage. That is a marriage without the intervention of the public authority and therefore without the canonical form. Clandestine marriages were being practiced at this period. This made the bishops of Spain and France and some other civil authorities to request that the church to do something to stop it. The council issued a decree that marriage is celebrated at the presence of the parish priest or local ordinary and before 2 or 3 witnesses is valid. So this came from the Council of Trent. At that time, there was, clandestine marriages were common, were being practiced. A man could meet someone he wants to marry, and both of them will, marry without the presence of a local ordinary or church authority. That's what we mean by clandestine marriage, what you may call secret marriage. Secret marriage, but we don't use the term secret marriage for it. We call it clandestine because there was an absence of uh, a competent ecclesiastical authority. And the problem with that is that when you marry without the intervention of the church, one could go to another place and marry. One can marry, 4 or 5 times without the church knowing it. And that will also give you an idea why today we call marriage ban. It is part of it to know whether someone has an information about these parties that are preparing for marriage, whether one of them has married before and all of that. So it's good to know the history, how all this began in the church. However, this decree was not promulgated for the universal church. That's the decree of the second of Council of Trent. It was promulgated only for determinate territories. Again, the parish priests and the witnesses had only passive roles. They were only to observe and nothing more. Now, in 1907, Pope Pius X, in his decree Nel Temere, made canonical form a law binding the universal church. So canonical form as a law binding the church began in 1907 under the pontificate of Pope Pius X. Pope Pius decreed that for the validity of marriage, marriage must be celebrated at the presence of the parish priest of the territory where the marriage is taking place. For validity, it is required that the parish priest should not be passive, but should ask for the consent of the parties and receive it in the name of the church. As we progress in this presentation, you will understand more the role of one who assists at marriage. So the function from the decree of Pope Pius X is that the parish priest or the local ordinary or whoever that assists at the marriage should not be passive, but rather he should take an active role. And that role is to ask for the consent of the parties and to receive that consent in the name of the church. The 1917 Code modified this law. In its Canon 1094, the code stipulated that all marriages are valid which are celebrated before the parish priest or local ordinary or a priest delegated by any of them and 2 witnesses. That was the modification made by the 1917 Code of Canon Law, that marriage can also be valid when a priest duly delegated by the parish priest, assists at that marriage. It must not necessarily be either the parish priest or the local ordinary, but so a priest duly delegated. As we progress, we will now see the change that the present law made with regards to this 1917 law. The 1983 Code added deacon to the law. You see, that's a change, an addition The 1917 Code, in its stipulation of canonical form, did not add the deacon, but necessarily the priest. But the present code, the law binding the church presently, adds deacon. Let us read it. In its Canon 1108, it stipulates only those marriages are valid. Sorry. Only those marriages are valid which are contracted before the local ordinary, pastor, or a priest or deacon delegated by either of them, who assists and before two witnesses, according to the rules expressed in the following canons, and without prejudice to the exceptions mentioned in Canon 144, 11, 12. We are going to talk about these exceptions towards the end. So, of course, the exceptions, I'm going to talk about it towards the end. Now, let us discuss three elements from this canon. First, the contracting parties, that's the spouses. Second, the person assisting at marriage. Then the third will be the witnesses. The witnesses. We take them one after the other. The contracting parties. Marriage is contracted by the two parties who give their consent. Therefore, they are the ones who really celebrate the marriage. According to the theological church, in the marriage between two baptized, the parties are the true ministers of the sacrament of matrimony. They have to be juridically capable of marrying. That is, they have to be free from impediments. They have to manifest their consent legitimately. That is according to canonical form. They should be present either in person or through prosy. One can marry through prosy. That is, when you give mandate that someone should represent you, and that mandate will be signed by the parish priest before you continue, before the marriage continues. So just know that one can marry either in person or through prosy. We have that in Canon 1104, paragraph 1, which says that to contract a marriage validly, the contracting parties must be present together, either in person or by prosy. Those being married are to express matrimonial consent in words, or if they cannot speak, they can express it through equivalent signs. I brought this canon to let you know that in the church, marriage by prosy is allowed. Now, the second, persons who assist at marriage. In Latin, they are called assistants. One who assists at marriage is the central figure of the canonical form of celebration of marriage, as it concerns the entire ecclesial community. Canon 1108, paragraph 2 stipulates the person who assists at a marriage is understood to be only that person who is present, asks for the manifestation of the consent of the contracting parties, and receives it in the name of the church. He is the official representative of the church. He has the function to ask and receive the consent of the spouses in the name of the church. For him to assist validly, he must be actively present, act freely, and also conscious of the action. This person is a sacred minister, is either a priest or a deacon. In certain cases, lay person can be delegated. Also, one who receives the consent, who asks the parties to express their consent, and he received the consent in the name of the church, is said to be one who assists at marriage. And for the person to assist validly, he has to be conscious of what is happening. He has to act freely. If maybe, let's say in a communist society, in a communist country, the soldiers gather around the church and point gun at the head of the priest to ensure that she assists at that marriage. That marriage is not valid because the priest assisting uh, was was not free. So he didn't act freely. And because of that, the juridical act becomes null. His presence at that marriage, acts nothing because of the lack of freedom. All right. So for one to act, assist validly in any marriage celebration, the person has to be conscious. The person has to act freely. The person has to, you know, ask the parties to express their consent, and he received the consent in the name of the church. Witnesses. That's the third element. The presence of two witnesses is essential for the validity of the marriage celebration. The canon speaks of two witnesses. These witnesses are not qualified with regards to age, sex, religion, and the like. What is more important is that they should have the capacity to intend and to will. They should not be distracted from what is happening at the moment. It is important that they are asked before to be witnesses. But even if they come on their own without any invitation, even if they come to the church with any motive, it is also sufficient. What is needed is their presence. So, friends, just take note of this that in baptism, we talk about the sponsors. In the sacrament of confirmation, we talk about the sponsors and the requirement for one to be a sponsor. One of the requirements is that the person must be baptized, the person must be a confirmed Catholic. But in marriage, we talk about witnesses. Definitely, we have marriage sponsors, all right? But the canon law does not have regulation of marriage sponsors. It is the local customs. We have it in many places, parishes, and all of that. Just know that it has nothing to having a marriage sponsor or not having marriage sponsor has nothing to the validity of marriage. What is more important is the witness. That for there to be a valid marriage, there must be at least two witnesses. And the two witnesses, it doesn't matter whether they are Catholics or they are not Catholics. It doesn't matter whether they are Christian or not. What matters is that there are two persons who are witnessing the marriage. The person who will be able to, give testimony that these two persons, they wedded in the church. And those persons must be people who have reason, people who have the capacity to understand what is happening. The law does not talk about the age that for you to be a witness in a marriage, you must be so age. No. All right. But the thing is that such a person has to be uh, has to be conscious. Canonists will tell you, we explain that the person shouldn't be below the age of 14. The reason why the person shouldn't be below the age of 14 is because in the processual law of the church, one who is not up to 14 cannot go to church tribunal to give a witness. One who is not up to 14, age of 14, cannot stand in an ecclesiastical tribunal, cannot stand for trial, cannot give witness. The person will have a procurator, someone standing on his behalf and all of that. So based on this, many canon lawyers will say that for one to be a witness in a marriage, it is important that the person has reached the age of 14. Okay. The only function of witnesses, is to witness to the fact that marriage was validly celebrated and nothing more. They don't have the function to ensure that the people who were there are living their life according to the teaching of the church or whatever. No, their function is to bear witness that marriage takes place. Okay. So the idea of sponsor is something uh, that the code of canon law does not have regulation on, but it is a practice, a good practice, a recommended practice that those who enter into marriage should have people who can support them. All right. Uh, so know that it has nothing to do with the validity of marriage. It's only the witnesses we are talking about that add something to the validity of marriage. And the people who are witnesses at that point shouldn't be insane. They should not be intoxicated. Someone who is under the influence of alcohol cannot bear witness in a marriage. Yes, because the person is not even paying attention, is not conscious of what is going on. I think I'm overstressing this. All right, we now go to the exceptional cases. So the canonical form, the exceptional cases mentioned in that canon 1108. The canon we are discussing mentions the following canons as exceptions to canonical form. Canon 144, Canon 1112, paragraph 1, Canon 1160, 1127, paragraph 1 and 2. Let us look at what this canon say. How are they really exceptions to this canonical form? Canon 11, Canon 144 stipulates that in common error of fact or law, that the church supplies the power of governance. The church supplies the power to assist at marriage in cases of common error. What then is common error? Probably you have read about it before, common error. When the Lord of the Church speaks about common error, the emphasis, has to do with a wrong judgment made by the congregation, not by one person. Error in judgment made by the congregation, the community, the ecclesia community. Example of common error is this. Okay, that let me use the sacrament of confession to explain this before I continue with this marriage discussion. In the sacrament of confession, every Catholic priest, apart from being a Catholic priest, is expected to have faculty. Faculty is delegated power of jurisdiction to hear the confession of the people of God. A priest who doesn't have faculty cannot hear confession validly. Now, the people of God assume that a priest who has gone to confessional to hear confession definitely has faculty. People have gathered in the church for confession. Eventually, a priest comes to hear their confession. So, if that priest doesn't have faculty to hear confession, the error that the people are making by thinking he has confession, he has faculty, is called common error, because every reasonable person will think that such a priest has this faculty. Now, in the case of marriage, the canonical form stipulates, just as I have noted earlier, that For there to be a valid marriage, the marriage must be celebrated in the presence of the parish priest or local ordinary, that is, the bishop, episcopal vicar, vicar general, all right. Now, they can also delegate another priest or deacon to go and assist at marriage. So that delegation is that they are giving faculty to another priest to assist at marriage. That is faculty. Now, a priest who goes to assist at marriage without having faculty, he has gone to celebrate marriage, he doesn't have faculty. That marriage has celebrated becomes an invalid marriage. But that error can be corrected through what we call stanatio, which will be given by the bishop. Now, common error is that the parish priest or the local ordinary who ordinarily has faculty to hear this confession, if it happens that he doesn't have this faculty, probably that the bishop of the diocese has withdrawn his faculty as a priest, something happens that he doesn't have faculty. The people of God, his parishioners, ordinarily believe that their parish priest, the local ordinary, has faculty. So when there is a marriage celebration, the priest goes to assist at that marriage, but he doesn't have faculty. The law of the church is saying that at that point, that marriage is still a valid marriage because the church supplies the power of governance. That is what we are talking about now, okay? That the power that the local ordinary or the parish priest has to assist at marriage is called faculty. So this power is being supplied in a case whereby any of them goes to assist at marriage without having this faculty. Okay? Uh, so the people of God who believes that their parish priest has this, whereas he has not the faculty, has committed what you call common error. So in this case, the marriage is still valid because the church supplies this faculty. Now, on the other hand, if another priest comes to a parish to celebrate marriage, okay, and nobody delegates him, the parish priest didn't give him the permission, didn't give him the faculty to go ahead and celebrate, to assist at marriage. That priest doesn't have faculty. So if he goes to celebrate, assist at that marriage will not become a valid marriage. But at the end of that marriage, what happens is that the bishop of the diocese will be informed, then he will, give what we call sanatio. He will grant sanatio in radice, radical sanatio to the marriage, meaning that the invalidity of that marriage, has been corrected and the marriage becomes valid. Maybe I'm taking you too far, but just know that this is how it works in the church, okay? We call this common error. In the case of common error, the church supplies the power of governance. Maybe when you ask questions, I can explain it more if you don't get it. All right, that is the first exception we are talking about. The exception in the case whereby there is where there is common error. Now, the second one is Canon 1112, paragraph 1. It stipulates that with the prior favorable opinion of the Conference of Bishops, and after the permission of the Holy See has been obtained, the diocesan bishop can delegate lay persons to assist at marriages where priests or deacons are lacking without prejudice to the prescription of 1108 paragraph 3. Okay? Now, this canon is saying that there are cases whereby a lay person can assist at marriage. We find that in territories where priests are not many. I think in northern Nigeria, there are some places in northern Nigeria where it takes a priest like 1 month or thereabouts to cover churches or parishes within that territory. You can find that in Amazon, I mean, there are many places in the world where there is scarcity of praise. So in a place like that, the bishop of the diocese can, delegate lay people to assist at marriage. That is what the canon law is saying. This is considered as an exception to canonical form. Now, we have another exception in Canon 1127, paragraph 2 says, uh, if grave difficulties hinder the observance of the canonical form, the local ordinary of the Catholic party has the right of dispensing from the form in individual cases after having consulted the ordinary of the place in which the marriage is celebrated and with some public form of celebration for validity. It is for the Conference of Bishops to establish norms by which the aforementioned dispensation is to be granted in a uniform manner. Okay, so this canon is talking about in the case of mismarriage. That will be the next thing I'll be talking about now, mismarriage. Now, in that case, there is a possibility of the bishop granting dispensation from this canonical form. What does that mean? It means that let's take example, a son of the bishop of an Anglican church wants to marry a Catholic. And the canonical form is that for that marriage to be valid, it must be celebrated in the Catholic Church in the presence of parish priests and other people we've mentioned. But this is the son of an Anglican bishop. So in a case like this, if they come to the bishop of the diocese, I mean the Catholic bishop, and the Catholic party goes to the bishop and requests that the bishop should grant dispensation that they may celebrate the marriage in the Anglican Church. It is left for the bishop to, evaluate the situation to know whether he can grant the dispensation or not. So they cannot say in grave difficulties. So the bishop will judge whether this is a grave difficulty or not. So when the bishop judges such a situation to be a grave difficulty and grant dispensation, when that marriage is being celebrated in another church, the marriage is still valid. It should be recorded in the baptismal card of the parties. But if they go to another church and do the celebration and all of that without letting the bishop know, without getting this dispensation, that marriage is invalid. Now, this will launch me to the next important point, and that is mismarriage. I would like you to pay attention on this because mismarriage is something important nowadays where many Catholics are even marrying non-Catholics. It's good you understand church's law on mismarriage, dear friends. It is necessary that every Catholic marriage counselor and educator should know the law of the Catholic Church on mismarriage. Let us now discuss the stipulation of canon law on mismarriage. Canon 1124 stipulates, without express permission of the competent authority, a marriage is prohibited. I highlight that. Is prohibited between two baptized persons, one of whom was baptized in the Catholic Church or received into it after baptism, the other of whom belongs to a church or ecclesia community, not in full communion with the Catholic Church. Friends, please know this. According to Dominic Jesu Christi, according to the document of the Church issued by Pope Benedict XVI, note this that those who are not in full communion with the Catholic Church, their community, their gathering is called ecclesia community. The church uses ecclesia community to describe the Pentecostal churches and the like, because there is lack of apostolic succession and Eucharist. So the teaching of the church is that where there is absence of apostolic succession, where there is absence of true Eucharist, there is no true church. So the church uses ecclesia community. The church uses church more to describe to our Christian brethren that have true Eucharist and are part of the apostolic succession. Example, the Orthodox Church. The Orthodox Church. Just for you to know, that's why in the canon law you see the term church or ecclesia community. Ecclesia community. So no, as canonists, we don't describe those who, I mean, the Pentecostal churches. We don't really describe it as a church, but as an ecclesia community. That is what mismarriage is. Let us now look at it bit by bit. The above canon highlights the following meaning of mismarriage. Mismarriage is a marriage between two baptized Christians, one of whom is a Catholic and the other a non-Catholic Christian. Just know that the two persons are baptized. For that to be a mismarriage, we are talking about two persons who are baptized. One is a Catholic and the other one is someone that belongs to another ecclesial community or church that has a valid baptism. Someone who is baptized in what's the name of this church now? Jehovah Witness. What's the name of someone who is baptized in uh let's say in Jehovah Witness? Okay, there is another one I'm thinking, the Mormons. The Mormon Church of Christ of Latter-day Saint and all of that. You know that their baptism is not a valid baptism. So one who goes there to baptize or a member of this ecclesial committee who comes to marry a Catholic, that marriage is not a mismarriage because the other party is not really baptized. So we talk about baptism, we talk about mismarriage in a case where there is where both parties are baptized, a Catholic and a non-Catholic Christian. That is point number one. Now, point number two is that permission to have mismarriage. There must be permission, okay? Without the express permission of the competent authority, Catholic Church prohibits a marriage between a Catholic and a non-Catholic without the permission of the competent authority. The church prohibits it. Why does the church prohibit mismarriage without the express permission of the competent authority? The church does so because of the particular problems to which mismarriage can give rise. Pope Paul VI, in the document Matrimonial Mixta, affirmed that mismarriages pose an obstacle to the full spiritual communion of the parties. It has been observed that spouses in mismarriage, despite their sharing a common faith in Christ, the scriptures and other elements of Christian heritage, bring with them the tragically divided state of the Church of Christ. The different ways in which various churches understand and live out the Christian faith are also a source of tension in mismarriage. Again, there is the danger of the Catholic party lapsing from his faith. The church is prepared to grant permission for mismarriage, provided that there is a just cause and there arises a spiritual benefit to the parties. The just cause may be the relative fewness of the Catholics in a given area, or a serious promise by the non-Catholic party to embrace the Catholic faith, or a well-founded hope to that effect, or the necessity to regularize an illegal union and avoid scandal, or it is the only way of exercising one's natural rights of getting married and have children. So just note that the church can grant permission to, uh, mismarriage for a just cause. For a just cause. So without the permission of the local ordinary, if one goes to marry someone who is not a Catholic without the permission and goes to the person church and do the rites, okay, that marriage is it's not valid based on lack of canonical form. But if one without the permission goes ahead to marry the person following canonical form, that marriage is valid but illicit. So uh, when it comes to validity, the 1917 code, says that it is invalid when the person does not have the permission. But the 1983 code does not say it is invalid. That marriage can be valid if a canonical form is followed. But in most times, people who do mismarriage, they go to another person, the church or the ecclesial community of the person they are marrying, and they go and do all the marriage rites and all of that. So in that case, there is no valid marriage. Statistics show that the proportion of marriages that turn out unhappy is greater when the parties are of different religious beliefs than when both parties profess the same religion. The union of spirits usually fails, or at least is weakened, when there is, in regard to the highest and most important matters, which men hold sacred, that is, religious truths and feelings, a disparity of convictions, and an opposition of wills. When a Catholic marries a non-Catholic, he or she is likely to put himself or herself in a situation of losing his or her Catholic faith or of becoming lax in his practices. Married persons exert a great influence on each other. Again, the religious training of children is extra difficult in such marriage. According to Canon 1125, there are conditions for granting permission for a mismarriage. And I would like you all to pay attention to these three conditions. The three conditions that must be fulfilled before the church grants permission for a mismarriage. But before I go to these conditions, also know that there are those who live in whose marriage, you know, is this mismarriage we're talking about, those who contract mismarriage, let me put it that way, and they are living peacefully. I know of a couple in UK now, a Nigerian couple who moved to UK sometime last year. One is a Catholic, the lady is a Catholic, and the husband is an Anglican. I mean, they are living peacefully. There are few cases where you find that too. Okay. Uh, the church grants permission, and when the church grants permission for it to be done, the church ensures that there is no danger at all that the Catholic party will, lose his or her faith. Now let us go to the conditions. We find these conditions in Canon 1125, which stipulates the local ordinary can grant this permission if there is a just and reasonable cause. He is not to grant it unless the following conditions are fulfilled. One, the first condition, you can even write it down if you have your paper. Anyway, you will get the slides. You may not bother. The first condition is that the Catholic party is to declare that he or she is prepared to remove dangers of defecting from the faith and is to make a sincere promise to do all in his or her power in order that all the children be baptized and brought up in the Catholic Church. That is the first condition, that the Catholic party is to declare that he or she is ready to remove any danger that he or she may encounter, okay, and to make a sincere promise that all his or her children will be baptized and brought up in the Catholic Church. A sincere promise. I like that term. A sincere promise, not just a mere promise for the sake of marriage because you want to marry, you now make the promise. No, the promise must be sincere. Sincere in the sense that what you are saying, you are ready to live it out. You are not just saying it for the sake of saying, but you are convinced and you are ready to live it out. That's what that sincere means. Now, condition number two, the other party is to be informed in good time of these promises to be made by the Catholic party so that it is certain that he or she is truly aware of the promise and of the obligation of the Catholic party. The non-Catholic party is not going to make any protest, but rather he or she will be aware that the Catholic party is making this promise. Both parties are to be instructed about the purposes and essential properties of marriage, which are not to be excluded by either contractant, meaning that both of them have to go for marriage course. Both of them have to go for marriage course, not only the Catholic party, both of them, so that they will know what the stipulation of the Church of Marriage is. Now, the summary of the above canon is that the local ordinary, that is the diocesan bishop or those equal to him, such as apostolic vicar, apostolic administrator, and those who have executive power, episcopal and general vicars. These are the people called local ordinary in the church. So the summary is that all these persons mentioned are only to permit a mismarriage only when the three conditions are fulfilled: the declaration and promise of the Catholic party, the notification of the non-Catholic party, and catechesis for both parties. So all these things, the local ordinary has to ensure that all these are being fulfilled and taken care of before granting the permission for the Catholic party to enter into mismarriage. This is necessary. It is required for licity of the marriage, not for the validity, but for the licity, for it to be lawful in the church. But if one doesn't get all this, doesn't get dispensation, I've said it before, and goes ahead to marry the person, not following the canonical form, that is going to the person's church or ecclesial community after everything the person has done, that marriage is invalid. That marriage is invalid. Okay, but if the person does not get dispensation and goes ahead to marry in the Catholic Church, following the condition, which may not even happen because no parish priest will do that without ensuring that these conditions are followed. If it happens anyway, the marriage is valid but unlawful. illicit. In the marriage law of the Catholic Church, we are not talking about disparity of court now. This is also an important aspect. In the marriage law of the Catholic Church, disparity of court is listed among the impediments of marriage. Impediment of marriage refers to a law that makes one incapable of contracting a valid marriage. I'm going to discuss this more in the marriage webinar of next week in Catholic Marriage Forum, disparity of courts. Now, let's see what the canon says about disparity of courts. We find that in Canon 1086, which stipulates that a marriage between two persons of whom one was baptized in the Catholic Church or received into it, and the other of whom one is not baptized is invalid. Dear friends, please pay attention to what is happening now. Pay attention to the two, to mismarriage and disparity of courts. There are two things I would like you to pay attention to. This canon that I just read says that a marriage between a baptized person who is a Catholic and one who is not baptized. You see the first difference. Whereas mismarriage is for two persons who are baptized. One is a Catholic, the other one belongs to another church or ecclesial community. That is point number one that I want you to pay attention to. Now, point number two is that the canon goes ahead to say that this marriage is invalid. Whereas in mismarriage, it didn't talk about it being invalid. Rather, it said that it is prohibited. I want you to take note of this. It means that disparity of courts is an impediment for marriage. It is an impediment. It is listed among the impediments, meaning that anyone who goes ahead to marry one who is not a baptized person at all, without getting dispensation, marries invalidly. Marries invalidly. No two ways about that. Take note of that, okay? Now, paragraph 2 says that a person is not to be dispensed from this impediment unless the conditions mentioned in Canon 1125 and 1126 have been fulfilled. So these conditions are the same conditions that I listed while discussing the same conditions that I discussed when I was talking about mismarriage. The same conditions. So when those conditions are not fulfilled, this, anyone who marries someone who is not baptized marries invalidly. Please take note of these points. Now, from the above canon, we can define the disparity of faults as a marriage between a Catholic and an unbaptized person. This unbaptized person can be one who belongs to another religion, such as Islam or ATR, African Traditional Religion, or one who belongs to an ecclesial community whose baptism is not recognized by the Catholic Church. Example, the Mormons or Jehovah's Witness. In that case, you don't talk about mismarriage, rather, you talk about disparity of faults. Thus, when a non-Christian or a person who received an invalid baptism marries a Catholic without the previous dispensation of the local ordinary, his or her marriage is invalid. Such marriage is called disparity of faults. Note that what makes one's baptism valid is that the baptism is conferred only by a washing in rain water with the proper form of words. We find that in Canon 849. And the proper form of words, what you call the Trinitarian formula. So the proper form of words required for a valid baptism is called Trinitarian formula, which is The name of the person will be mentioned. I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Anything outside of this is not a valid baptism. Why this impediment of the disparity of gods? From the point of view of canon law, one who is not baptized is juridically considered an unbeliever. He or she does not belong to the people of God, popular day. This condition is not compatible with canonical marriage because there is a danger to the faith of the Catholic party and of the offspring. What is in question is the higher good, which is faith. The divine law requires that we safeguard our faith. However, the church recognizes that unbaptized person has a fundamental or natural right to contract a marriage. She then provides the dispensation of the impediment of disparity of gods if specific conditions are fulfilled. These are the same conditions needed for the permission of mismarriage. Now, from the above, it must be stated that for the church to permit a Catholic to marry an unbaptized person, there must be a sufficient reason that the proposed marriage will not constitute a threat to the Catholic's ability to continue to practice his or her faith and to hand on the Catholic faith to their children. This assurance is made by the Catholic party in the form of promises, which we've discussed while talking about mismarriage. The Catholic party must declare his or her readiness to remove all dangers of practicing, of lapsing from the Catholic faith, and promise to do all within his or her power to ensure that their children receive Catholic baptism and formation. The non-Catholic party is not required to make any promise, but must be made aware of all that the Catholic party has promised. If this declaration and promise are not made, there will be no valid dispensation from the disparity of gods, meaning that the marriage will be invalid. All right, friends, we shall now conclude with the question of polygamous marriage. I just termed this polygamous marriage because it has to do with one who marries more than one wife, and eventually the person wants to become a Catholic. The person receives baptism. What does the law of the church say? That will be the final discussion. Uh, Canon 1148, paragraph 1 says, stipulates that when he receives baptism in the Catholic Church, talking about someone who has more than one wife or a woman who has more than one husband. So when he receives baptism in the Catholic Church, a non-baptized man who has several non-baptized wives at the same time can retain one of them after the others have been dismissed, if it is hard for him to remain with the first one. So the practice is that, in our African society, many, many years ago, before the advent of Christianity, many of our forefathers had more than one wife. Eventually, Christianity came, some of them got baptized. So what was the pastoral way of handling such situation? That's what the canon law is saying. That the practice, or as a rule, is that the man, picks one of the wife, picks the first wife for marriage. But if, he doesn't want the first wife, if it is hard for him to remain with the first one, so he can choose any of the wives and dismiss the others. The same is valid for a non-baptized woman who has several non-baptized husbands. at the same time. Paragraph 2 says that in the cases mentioned in paragraph 1, marriage must be contracted in legitimate form after baptism has been received. By legitimate form, we are talking about canonical form, which we've discussed already, and the prescripts about mismarriages, if necessary, and other matters required by the law are to be observed. So it will become mismarriage if maybe the other wife he has picked to marry, has also been baptized in another church or ecclesial community. It will now become mismarriage, and the laws of mismarriage will be followed. Paragraph 3 is important. It says that keeping in mind the moral, social, and economic conditions of places and of persons, the local ordinary is to take care that the needs of the first wife and the others dismissed are sufficiently provided for according to the norms of justice, Christian charity, and natural equity. The man will not just dismiss the wife, the woman he has been living with for 40 years, 50 years, 20 years, just like that. There is need to provide necessary social security for the person out of Christian charity and natural justice, natural equity. This could be, probably building a different house for the person, not throwing the person out there in the society. This will be done according to the norms of the place, okay? But the point remains that the church is not saying because you have received baptism, therefore make the other person to suffer. No, you have to take care of the person's needs. You are not doing it as a husband, but you are doing it, out of natural equity. That is what justice demands. That's what Christian charity demands. All right, friends, at this point, I come to the end of our presentation of the teaching on common law on marriage. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Father.
All right, I'm happy that you all are awake.
Thank you,
Father,
Father.
I was
thank
checking,
Thank
you so
you,
much.
nobody has
Father.
left.
Thank you, Father.
All right, all right. Please let me see your reaction.
Thank
Send your favorite emoji, react. Let me know that you followed or you got something. I want to see your reaction. Send your favorite emoji. You can make joyful noise where you are. Just react. Let me know that some
Thank
people really listen to
you.
me.
Thank
All right,
you.
Father
Father,
Innocent.
Father,
Yeah. All right.
but
Okay. I
unlawful,
can see
valid
your
but unlawful.
emojis.
Valid,
Hello?
valid but unlawful. Please, can you explain it a bit?
Yeah,
When a
hold on,
marriage
hold on.
contracted,
Yeah, it's under question. Everyone will ask question, okay? So thank you for your emojis. Thank you for your reactions. I'm happy that I didn't bore you, that all of you paid keen attention to the presentation. I'm glad. It's not time for question. I know some of you are waiting for me. I'm waiting for question. Uh, I'd be surprised if I don't get some questions I'd be expecting. Uh, I know you have been writing all your questions down and all of that. It is not time for that. What this is 10, okay. Raise your hand up for question or comment or contribution. Uh, you can put it on the chat, then let's take the one after the other. I now invite, okay, there's a question first from Mrs. Eugenia S. Eugenia S, say it again, your question.
yeah, Father, I said when you were presenting, you said that some marriages could be valid but unlawful. It wasn't clear.
All right. All right. So I said that in the context of mismarriage. Okay.
Yeah.
I said that according to 1917 Code of Common Law, in the previous law of the church, the any marriage that has to do when a Catholic marries one who is not a Catholic Christian. That is mismarriage. The 1917 Code of Canon Law says that that marriage is automatically invalid unless these conditions I mentioned are followed. Okay. Now, the present law, that is 1983 Code of Canon Law, removes that invalidity that 1917 Code of Canon Law puts. It doesn't say that that marriage is invalid. Rather, it says that that marriage is prohibited. The church does not allow it. So for it to be done, these conditions have to be followed. What does that mean? It means that assuming the conditions are not followed, one goes ahead to marry one who is not a Catholic, okay? But the person follows canonical form. What does canonical form mean? That the person celebrates the marriage in the presence of the local ordinary, of the bishop, of the parish priest, and all of that. That marriage is valid. But it is not a lawful marriage. It is not lawful. What does that mean? It means that it is not in accordance with the law of the church. That is what is, but it is valid. And I said that such a thing is rare to even happen because you cannot come and have your marriage following the canonical form. That's before the parish priest, witnesses, and all of that, without getting dispensation from this mismarriage. Which parish priest will do that without asking you question, without asking you to follow the conditions? All right. So that is what I'm talking about. That in case it happens, that marriage is still valid, but it is unlawful, illicit. Whereas in 1917 code, in such a case, it is invalid. Does that make sense? Does it answer your question, Mrs. Eugenia?
Yes, Father, I'm still trying to comprehend all of that.
All right, please do
Okay.
process it before we finish, before the final prayer,
Yeah.
okay? Keep processing it. I now call on Mr. Felix. After Mr. Felix, we have Mr. Kajita. Mr. Felix, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Father. Thanks so much. My question is this from polygamy. Those wives, that are dismissed, then their children, what is their fate? Are those children also dismissed? Or do they have right to their father's inheritance? That's my question, Father.
So the children are legitimate children of the man. Is that okay? They
Yes,
are
Father.
legitimate children. So the validity, the dismissal, or whatever, has nothing to do with the legitimacy of the children. They are the children of the man. The man is not going to dismiss, no, 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 no. So the canon law has law on children or how children can become legitimate. Example of this is that two people who are cohabiting, okay, they have child
Yes.
from that cohabitation. When they are cohabiting, of course, they, according to the law of the church, since they are not married, the children don't have legitimacy. But as soon as they receive baptism and marry, automatically they have legitimacy. That is the law of the church in this case now. Now, in the case of what we are talking about, the children that came out of it, the man will not say, these children, okay, if I follow your mama, all of una, bye bye. No, no, no. Rather, what the church stipulates is that he dismisses the woman, meaning that he cuts away from every sexual cooperation with her. Any sexual cooperation that comes after that, okay, becomes a sin. Now, dismissing it is not so, I explained that already. I'll let you not repeat myself, but that is it. The children are legitimate children of the man,
Yeah.
okay? All
Okay.
right, we have Mr. Augustine. Unmute yourself, Mr.
Yeah,
August.
yeah. Thank you, Father, for the explanations, and thank you all. Please, I didn't quite note it, so I almost forgot it. There was a point you mentioned, determinant territory or something. Please, can you throw a little light?
Yes, I'm talking about uh, faculties. That was when I was talking about the history of canonical form. Okay, the history of canonical form in the sense that a marriage is celebrated. Please, who is disturbing us? Marriage is celebrated before the parish priest who has faculty in the determinate territory. Assuming you want to marry, your parish, Mr. August, what's the name of your parish? Mr. August, what's the name of your parish?
I am of Saint Christopher's Catholic Church, Asaba, in the local diocese.
Exactly, Asaba. Your parish priest in that parish, Asaba, okay, has faculty when you want to wed and all of that. You left Asaba and you are coming to a place like Lagos to go and wed in St. Dominic's Parish, Yaba, Lagos. You now go and bring your parish priest from Asaba to come and do your wedding here. So your parish priest has his faculty, what we call power of jurisdiction within his territory. In canon law, we call it the power of jurisdiction. So if he is leaving his jurisdiction, going to the jurisdiction of another person, he has to get the permission of the parish priest in that place. So the determinate territory we are talking about is the territory where you have your domicility, where you are domiciled. All right? Or either where you have your quasi domicility or where you have your full domicility. That is where you are. So the parish priest here has the faculty to take care of your marriage. So that's what the law means by determinate territory. All right? Does that make sense?
Yes, please. Yes, it does.
Okay, Father Clement, please unmute yourself and speak. Then Father Innocent. Hello, Father. You can speak now. Father Clement, you are muted, Father Clement. Okay, Father Innocent. Oh, you can speak now, Father Innocent.
Okay, thank you, Father, for this opportunity once again. Actually, I raised my hand when somebody, I think the first person who asked the question was making reference to Pauline privileges, which you explained to us very clearly. But actually, that Pauline privilege, I still see it as something very difficult for our people because it is very challenging. If somebody like my grandfather, who was the king of my town, married 8 women, then at the end of the marriage of 8 women, and the church asks him to take one, of course, I know he would have taken my grandmother because she was the most beautiful. So now, if he has taken my grandmother, what happens in the terms of if he doesn't have the ability to provide for others? Because one, now, since he's no longer having any relationship with their mother, he will not be feeling that, call it urge to maintain their being, or rather spend on them. So is there nothing the church can do about this particular law? Because even from the very day this thing was taught in the seminary days, we shouted and we say not for African people. So, and I think the African people were actually one of the reasons why that law was made. So, but I still, you people who have opportunity in studying marriage canons, I think you also should have opportunity to make suggestions, because this is actually a very serious problem that have made us very, very not effective and productive in trying to combat our people. They will be asking you, how do I take care of these people once I don't see them wife again, their children? And you know, in African society, where that thing originated, it was when people count their, their greatness in terms of the number of children and the number of wives. Sorry, so I had a call that I muted it. So what are is there anything the canonists like you can do to help people of African culture who are in this state? That's just my question.
Thank you, Father Innocent. Of course, it is a pastoral situation, not just canonical. It is pastoral in the sense that the parish priests who are in the pastoral field experience that a lot. But I would just say that it depends on how it is followed. That's where pastoral charity comes. Pope John Paul II uses that term pastoral charity to tell pastors in handling issues to apply charity, smelling like the sheep in the words of Pope Francis. There's a way it can be handled. It will not cause, any issue. Example, let's say in a particular village, the parish priest comes in, a parish priest newly transferred to this parish. He begins to hear that there are, men living in polygamous marriage. Okay, he enforces it that you have to pick one and go and marry, then dismiss all of them. That are you a Christian? You have to dismiss all of them and all of that. That approach could make the people involved, you know, many of them will not even understand it. Many of them will start accusing the church. Many of them, because it is not been approached in love. But the best way could be, okay, you call them, you sit them down, explain to them that see the best way it is done. For you to really marry in the church, you need one wife. Why? Because marriage in the church mirrors the union between Christ and the church. Okay, you begin to explain to them biblically, theological in a way that they will understand. Then after that, you apply what the canon says. The canon talks of natural equity, Christian charity, and norms of justice. How can we understand it and how can we apply it? That is where your question comes in, Father. The thing is that sometimes it is not being applied. This Christian charity and natural equity are not being applied in the sense that the welfare, how can their welfare be taken care of? Their welfare could be taken care of. Even the parish can even assist in okay, see the children born in this area. I'm going to support you with this. All right. Now, the thing is that if you leave them out there, the problem may come in. But when their welfare is being taken care of, which might not necessarily be the man in question, but the Christian community can even assist. That can also be taken care of. Now, with regards to those of us that are canonists, what we can do. Of course, when we write our thesis, every doctoral dissertation is geared towards making a contribution in the church. There was a priest from Ekulobia Diocese who finished from my school recently. In his doctoral dissertation, his own was more on mismarriage, trying to make contribution on mismarriage and all of that. Of course, from the doctoral dissertation, one can make contribution, which can also, add something that has canonical value to the Lord of the church and all of that. Let me not say Lord of the church, but to juridical practice. All right. So, but for me, I will say that in this canon, we are talking about issues lies more on this natural equity and justice, the welfare and all of that, if they are well taken care of, then I don't see really a big issue in the pastoral care, following it pastorally. All right, Father, thank you
Okay, thank
for
you, Father.
asking the question. Thank you. Let's take
Thank you.
Father Clement. Which Father Clement should be raising hands, or is it by mistake? Okay, we have some questions in the
Maybe
chats.
network has cut him off. It's possible.
Okay, maybe. Uh, Mr. Kajetan, you can ask your before I go to the questions on the chat. Mr. Kajetan, please unmute yourself and
Thank you. Thank you.
ask
Okay,
your
thank you.
question.
Yeah, my question the issue of marriage by proxy. I didn't get it very well, what it means. And then again, I also need some examples of the just cause for a mixed marriage.
Okay, let me begin with the last one. Some of the examples for just cause for mixed marriage. I think in one of the slides, I mentioned some of them. Uh, example, a practical example given for that is one of the slide is that in a community, where there are fewer Catholics, okay, let's say a village community, whatever, where there are few Catholics, but there are many Protestants. And there are ladies growing up in that particular area. Some of their suitors definitely will be the Protestants because the Catholic community, the Catholic population is little, there is a small population in relation to the population of the Protestants. So in a case like this, mismarriage, this is an example of one example of a just cause for mismarriage. So the lady cannot say, okay, since Protestants are coming to me as suitors in this case, let me just go to their church and marry and all of that. No, that is where that is where the dispensation, not dispensation in this case now, that is where the permission. In mismarriage, we talk of permission. In disparity of court, we talk of dispensation. Please note the difference. In disparity of courts, we talk of dispensation because there is an impediment, whereas in mismarriage, we talk of permission. So in this kind of scenario, the permission of the bishop of the diocese, the local authority, is needed. That is an example. So you can think of examples that are related to this. But the bishop is the one to judge before giving that permission. Is this really necessary? Is this really a case for it uh, before granting that permission? Mr. Kajitan, that's the question number two. Now, the question number one is, did I get that again? Question number one.
Yeah, I want more elaboration on marriage by proxy.
Marriage by proxy. Okay. Yes, marriage by proxy. The law stipulates that one can marry either by person or by proxy. And what does that mean? Proxy is not just that you send somebody, so okay, I will not be able to come, go and represent me like that. No. First of all, there must be someone, a letter that you delegate the person. And in that letter, you write your name, you sign, and it will be given to the parish priest. The parish priest will sign, okay, but the local ordinary approves it before you now go and marry, and before you go and send the prosy. So that prosy is coming with the mandate. Italians will call it mandante, okay? Someone that is being mandated, mandate. He will present it to the parish priest who will sign it before the person goes ahead to be the prosy. So that prosy is at the moment of celebration of the marriage, not after that. So it ends at that time. That's the the agreement. But the law does not give us some of the conditions that can lead to this. For example, saying that it's only when somebody is sick, or when somebody travels abroad, or when somebody no. So any factor or circumstance that can lead to one sending a proxy, there must be very important something written from the person which has to be authenticated. So the element that should be there, one, the name of the person mandating, one, two, the name of the person being mandated, three, place, date, time, signature of the person mandating, signature of the parish priest. If any of this is lacking, then it is not valid. The marriage by proxy is not valid. Does that make sense to you, Mr. Kajita?
Yeah, I understand it. I think
But you don't agree. All right. Just know that we are talking of the universal law of the church. This church has to do with the. This is universal. The Catholic Church exists in every part of the world. So when some of these laws are made, you know that there are possibility of it happening in some parts of the world. Okay, in order to stop abuse and all of that, just note this. I feel like saying this. It might not be the problem of an African man sending someone by proxy and but if it must happen, these conditions must be fulfilled for it to be valid. We cannot take the questions on the chat now. For innocent, you want to add to that? You are raising hand.
No, sorry. No, it was the one I raised before. Let me bring my hand down. Sorry.
Okay, Father. We have questions on the chat.
Uh-huh.
Let me read
Yeah,
them.
sorry.
No problem. The first question says, if couple divorce in courts, does the church welcome them as couples in the church? Thank you for asking this question. We are talking about, the divorce. We have the divorce and remarriage, and we have the divorce and not marriage. Pope John Paul II in the Apostolic Exhortation, okay, called Familiaris Consortio, answered this. When couples divorce in the court, of course, you know that as far as the Catholic Church is concerned, it is not allowed. The church sees them as couples already. Whatever they do in the court, does not concern the church because the court does not have power over canonical marriage. The court has power over civil marriage. So if you wed in the church and you go to court and do whatever, uh, it doesn't have effect on canonical marriage. Now, eventually, those people, after getting the divorce from the court, one of them remarries. The person cannot be admitted to Holy Communion. That is the teaching of the church from Familiaris Consortium. Recently, Pope Francis is saying that the parish priest should weigh it case by case and all of that. But Pope Francis didn't change anything. Rather, he added that pastoral necessity could make the parish priest to evaluate case by case issue. But the law of the church still remains that such a person cannot be admitted to Holy Communion. But if they didn't remarry after getting the divorce in the court, whatever, of course, they can receive Holy Communion. So the Holy Communion is denied when they marry. So the church sees them as people who are still married. Whatever they got from the court, does not change anything to their marriage from the canonical point of view. So the answer to this question is yes, the church sees them as people who are still married, as couples, not people who are separated, who have divorced. All right? Because divorce does not exist in the dictionary. of the Catholic Church. Now, the second question says, I mean, if they divorce in the courts but didn't go, please, Sister Ezike, could you unmute yourself and ask the question? Let me understand it more. What is the church's stand? This couple did not apply in the church but are living separately. Please, I'd like to hear it from your mouth so that I don't give wrong answer to what you are asking. You are muted, Sister Ezike Dorothy. Unmute yourself. Okay. The next one, there is a post here from Father Clement Uche. My observation about the polygamous marriage. Okay, instead of using dismissal, I think it is more appropriate to apply the term separation of bed and board. Again, the consideration here is the spiritual good of both the man and the wives and is undertaken after proper catechesis. Yeah, but here, Father, the reason why we are not going to use the term separation of bed and board because there is no valid marriage. Separation of bed and board comes when there is valid marriage. Okay, when there is valid marriage, that marriage cannot be dissolved, but rather there could be separation in the case of adultery or in the case that the life of any of the parties is in danger. There is threats of life. That's where separation from board and bed comes in. But in the case of the discussion that once the person has received baptism, can dismiss others and pick any of that because at the beginning there was no sacramental marriage, no canonical marriage. So after one of them has received baptism, uh, that's when we can talk of sacramental marriage. So we don't use the term, the canon law does not use the term separation, of course, strictly following his teaching on separation. That separation comes in when, there is valid marriage, but one of them, because of infidelity, because of threat of life, or anything that can affect the spiritual good of any of the parties, the person can make recourse to the ecclesiastical authority and seek for separation from bed and board while the marriage bond remains. But in the case of the one we are talking about dissolution of that union because ab initio, we don't speak of canonical marriage in that case. That's why it's not even appropriate canonically in this situation to use this term separation of bed and board. Rather, this is used in the case of separation itself, where the marriage bond still remains. Dr. Gina, you can unmute yourself and speak. Dr. Gina, before you speak, hold on. Sorry, before you speak, Dr. Gina, there's one from Sister Anastasia. To what extent can the dismissed wives practice their sacramental Catholic life? Of course, they practice their sacramental Catholic life in every respect. In every respect. They receive communion because they are not living in any cohabitation. Their sacramental life is not being affected at all. They can even they can remarry, but they haven't married before as far as the church is concerned from canonical point of view. They can marry and live matrimonial life in full. So it doesn't affect their sacramental Catholic life in any way. Once they are being dismissed, nothing about their sacramental life is being affected at all. Sister, all right, Dr. Gina, you can speak now.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Father. Thanks for this great lesson. Uh, thank you. My question is about the polygamist and the polyandry. You say before they can be wedded with one of their wives, like one person, it could be from between the first one to the third one or the fourth one. They will be baptized before the wedding. If a man has been baptized before and later in life he began to practice polygamy and he wants to wed with he wants to wed one of his wives, what happens? Thank you.
Dr. Gina, the question you're asking now is something different from this discussion, okay? The discussion on board is that the person has never married before. Now, to answer your question, this person has married before, is a Catholic. Then, so this person has been baptized before, meaning that he's a Catholic in every respect. After he now marries the first wife, marries the second wife, that is enters into polygamous union, polygamous marriage. Definitely, the second marriage is invalid based on the impediment of previous bonds. So if he continues to live with the second wife, he will not be admitted to Holy Communion. He lives in public manifest sin, Canon 915. Okay? Dr. Gina. So that person is not
Yes,
living a life of witness as a Catholic, and he will not be receiving communion. He will not receive communion in the church. His rights as a Catholic will, be withdrawn because he's not bearing witness as a Christian man, as he ought to. Dr. Gina?
yes, Father.
All right,
What?
so it is different from the one we are talking about now. It is totally different. Okay, you say what?
Okay, I'm not saying if he was baptized and he wedded with the first one in the church. Maybe he was baptized as an infant, and later he began to live, outside the faith and decided to marry without wedding. Then he'd start practicing polygamy. I'm just wondering because at times you could find some people like that. So like they are not even practicing the African religion and they are not in the church. So they just live their lives like that. If such a person is wanting to come back, back to the church and he's being instructed to get married to one, basically he will not be baptized again. They will just sort him out from the next step, I think, right?
In that situation, he's not married now. So if he wants to come and he's going back to the church and wants to marry, of course, he picks any of them to marry.
Okay.
There are people like that, of course. There are people who do traditional marriage. After that, they go and marry again. Eventually, they say that they want to reform their lives. You have to
Mm.
pick one, come to the church and wed. That is it. You are not going to marry the two. You are not going to wed two of them in the church. You have to
Mm.
pick one. When you are ready to reform your life, you pick one and come to the church to wed. Meanwhile, before even picking that one, uh, you are living in cohabitation. You are living in cohabitation. Anyway, it is presumed that you know that already. So the answer is that when the person is ready to wed in the church, he picks one of the people, of the ladies he has been cohabiting with, then come to the church, reform his life, then he stops cohabiting with the other ones.
Mm. Okay. Thank you, Father. Thank you.
All right, let's take Mrs. Patricia Enebe. Lady Patricia, unmute yourself and speak.
Good evening, Father.
Good evening. God bless you.
Thank you, everybody. Please, Father, this is a real life happening, so I would like to be guided. This couple, they got married in the church, say like 30 years ago. Now, within this marriage, the man had children from a woman, and we heard that he went to do one carrying secretly for that woman. Now there is another woman in the matter. This one, her wine carrying was done 2 months ago. It was not secret. What do you call that? I know in the civil court it is bigamy. What does the church call that kind of a thing? And what happens to that woman that he wedded with? Thank you, Father.
Lady Patricia, I think yesterday, someone brought something similar to this. Well, let me summarize your question again so that we'll be on the same page. He married like for 30 years and all of that. Eventually, he goes to carry wine for another, meaning that he entered into another marriage traditionally. Okay, am I
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Whereas,
Father.
whereas the first wife, he's still living with the first wife. So he goes to marry another
Yes,
traditionally. Is that correct?
yes, sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
this story,
And another, the third one,
after
the
that,
second
he
one.
goes to do another one. It
Yes,
is,
2 months
it is,
ago here.
yeah, my dear sister, it is this way. No missing of words. We say it the way it is, okay? Any other thing the man does, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, all of them, as far as the church is concerned, those things are invalid. All right. So if after doing the wine carrying and all of that, he brings them to the house, begins to cohabit with them and all of that, okay? The church sees him as an adulterous man,
Good.
and he shouldn't even be admitted to Holy Communion. So there is no difference between him and a man who goes to sleep with a lady in a hotel or in another place and all of that because of previous bonds. The church takes marriage as something sacred, that once you have married, there is a bond, a marriage bond that holds you. And that marriage bond is holding you until your spouse dies. That's when you are free to marry. Once your spouse is alive, there is a marriage bond. Even if that marriage is not working, even if there is crisis in that marriage, there is a marriage bond. And this is understood from the sacramental aspect of marriage, from the covenantal aspect of marriage, that once you have entered in this covenant, the bond exists. Yesterday, I talked about consent not being revoked, that once you are giving your consent, you can't revoke it. This is the church's understanding of marriage. And for the church, marriage is sacramental. Marriage is something sacred. It's not something you toy with. It's not something you joke with. Because those who are married now become part of the creative work of God. So once we have married, then you begin to do wine carrying, you begin to look for other people to marry and other. You are abusing your marriage. You are abusing your marriage. It becomes an offense against the dignity of marriage. It becomes something shameful. It's not something somebody should do and be bragging and be proud of. Sorry, I'm talking to you this way as if you are the man. I'm sorry,
No,
but I'm
no,
being passionate
it's okay.
about this. It is
It's okay.
something It's not something we should condone, something we should frown. Marriage counselors, marriage instructors, when you see that, don't go and be painting it, go and be painting it. Okay, human beings, men are polygamous in nature. Let us show mercy. You don't do that. You don't do that. Marriage has its dignity, and the dignity should be promoted. The sanctity of marriage should be respected. Anybody who goes against that sanctity, we should speak against it. We should tell the person what you are doing is not right. And that is why the church denies such a person Holy Communion, because the person is not bearing witness to Christ. The church sees such a person, in the same category as seen as heretics. Canon 915 said that those who live in public manifest sin should not be admitted to Holy Communion. Why? Because of this kind of thing, they are not bearing witness to the Church of Christ. They are not bearing witness to Jesus himself. I know the reason why I'm sounding this way because I've heard of this before. I know a story, and but the man, I think he's regretting, and he's now suffering all of that. It is common. It is common, but we as marriage instructors and educators don't keep quiet when you see something like this. Say no, it is not allowed. And the same thing for our priests here. Yeah, we have a lot to do by teaching the people the right thing. Those who don't do the right thing, uh, they have themselves to be blamed. Okay. So thank you for asking that, Lady Patricia. God
Yes.
bless you. God bless you.
But I have, Father, please just a second.
Go ahead.
I have this in hand now. I have it on hand. What do you say to the woman? That is the problem. What do you say to the woman? I have this case on hand right now.
The woman, of course, that is where pastoral assistance, pastoral care comes in. For women who experience that, is to, talk to them, is to help them. Some of them pass through depression. Some of them, experience, having regrets and all of that. That's where we come in as a Christian community to let them know that no matter what they experience, the crisis they experience in their married life, that God has not abandoned them. It is about, speaking to them, talk to them. You can't give them the advice that, okay, because of what is happening, they should now leave the marriage and go and look for another man and all of that. You don't do that. You don't go into that area. Is to give them that Christian so-called, give them that, Christian advice, the advice that will help them to know that no matter the crisis they experience in this married life, they still have to believe that God is still with them. God is with them. God won't abandon them. And the troubles of marriage definitely will come to an end one day. Okay?
Yes, Father.
I
Yes,
don't, yes, what you tell the person is the truth. Make sure you tell the person the fact that the husband is not doing the right thing and she shouldn't allow herself to be over troubled by this situation. She should find her peace, take care of her children, pursue her career, take care of her family, put everything in prayer. Let God take care of the rest. All right,
yes, Father. Yes, Father. Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Mr. Augustine, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, Father. I just dropped the message anyway for convenience. It's on this issue of witness. Before now, I must confess that I thought a witness must be a married person and must be Catholics, a Catholic couple. But this your presentation this night has given me another insight to it that they must not be Catholics. So my two question is, if they must
Hold
not
on,
be
before you
Catholic,
continue. Hold on, before you continue. I think you are coming from the aspect of sponsor now. Hmm? Maybe you are coming from the
that
angle of sponsor. Remember that I said that the canon law does not regulate about marriage sponsor, all of that. They are more of, local customs, what is being practiced. So we are talking of witness, which is a necessity for validity of marriage.
Yes,
Okay?
yes.
So,
Must
yeah,
they be
that's where.
Catholic?
No, 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 no. The way you said it is correct, and the way you have it in the presentation, that is what the law says. That's correct. That's correct. But there are people
So my
who have
question now is that
sponsors.
must
Sponsors is a
okay,
different thing.
I
Sponsor
understand.
is a different thing.
For witness, must they be since they must not be Catholics, must they be married couples?
No, 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 no. I said that there is no qualification. The law does not give any qualification. What is it says that there must be at least two witnesses, and the two witnesses are people who are capable, okay, who are capable of knowing, of willing, of giving, of knowing what is happening, who are conscious of the environment. There is no age and all of that, no qualification that they must be Catholic, they must be Christian and all of that. For witnesses, what is needed is that they are able to testify that this marriage is celebrated. I mean, was legitimately celebrated. That's what witnesses are,
Uh,
and it is
all
necessary
right.
for valid marriage.
All right, thank you, Father. But it has become like a norm now that we usually insist that the couple must be Catholics and married too in the Catholic Church.
Like I said before, there are places where you have sponsors, where the custom could be maybe in a particular parish. The custom is that for you to wed, you have to go and choose sponsors who are Catholics so that they be able to accompany you in your married life. That is fine. That is perfect. Okay. But that has nothing to do with the validity. It is common, and in fact, it is even recommended. You have people who can accompany you. The young couples have those who are married that they be looking up to. It is recommended, it is beautiful practice. So in that case, of course, it is necessary that they become Catholic. It is necessary that there are people who leave their faith well. That is correct. That is about sponsor. But this does not come in the canonical regulation of the validity of marriage. It is something different. So what is needed is this witness. And nobody will say that for you to come and witness a marriage celebration, you have to be this, you have to be that. No. Okay. All right. But local custom can say for you to be a sponsor in marriage, you have to do this and do that. It is totally different from being a witness. Witness, nothing is really needed as such. Okay, I think at this point we come to the end. Mr. Chinonye Dagoba, I'll go ahead. Probably we are the last person tonight.
Okay. Good evening, Father. Good evening, everybody. Father, please, my question is about a young man that got married in the church, and after about 6 months, they had issues, and the wife left. A year later, she went and got married to another person, and right now, that boy is not married. So, what's the fate of this boy? Is he going to remain unmarried? Because the one he married is now married to another person. So how do we?
That he married, and the wife left him and got married to another person.
Yes, he's living with that person now as husband and wife, but the
And the
man,
man is,
the other one.
it's okay. I got it. I got it. My dear friends, uh, in married life, of course, you have experienced this in the course of your marriage education, your marriage counseling. There are a lot of married people who pass through a lot, who experience crises and issues. Uh, if I personally, I put them in prayers. I put them in prayers. But this kind of case, you cannot say because of the troubles or the challenges the man has been passing, you now go and advise him to go and remarry. Please note this, that the out of pity, or something related to that, don't give wrong advice to someone experiencing crisis in marriage. The fact remains that that person is validly married. Even though that the wife has left him and the marriage is valid. Now, if there is a doubt on whether that marriage is valid or not, it will be recommended that he approaches the discerned tribunal and present the marriage case to them. They will not investigate to see, if there is any element that could lead to declaration of nullity. But if there is nothing like that, the marriage remains valid, and he can't go and marry another person. It is difficult to say this, but it is the truth. Now, the woman who has left him marries another person, definitely can't come to the church and be receiving the sacrament. By doing that, she has cut herself away from the sacramental life. Probably she has left the church and joins another ecclesial community and
Yes,
begins to live
yes,
her life
another
there.
church.
Yeah, probably, yeah, that is the common thing. Now, the husband who remains a Catholic and wants to be a Catholic is experiencing marriage trouble and crisis. Uh, the point is that nobody will advise him to, dissolve that marriage bond, because that marriage bond is valid, and no human agency can dissolve a validly contracted marriage that is ratified and consummated. So we advise him to focus on his family, his children, we
He does
follow
not
him
have
up
a,
with
they
our
don't have a child
prayers.
yet. No child yet.
No child
The marriage,
yet.
yes, no
No
child.
child yet. It is a difficult situation that the man has find himself into, but there is always, by the grace of God, by the strength of the Holy Spirit, he'll be able uh, to live his life as a good Christian man, as a good Christian man. Entering into another marriage because of that definitely is contrary to church's understanding and teaching on marriage. Okay, this is
Okay,
Chinonye.
Father. Yes, Father.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jeff
Father, my
friends.
hand has been up.
Okay, I'm seeing
My
it
hand
now.
has
Go
been
ahead.
up too. Okay.
Sorry, I'm not. I
I
I didn't see it. Go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Father, and good evening, friends.
Good
Um,
evening.
yeah, you've actually clarified some of the questions I had yesterday. But I want to find out the on the issue of polygamy again. If the husband is expected to choose a wife, I understand that part. But what if a situation where a woman is into that polygamous marriage and wants to leave, and the husband refuses her leaving? And of course, because probably they married traditionally, the parents will also encourage or refuse her to live with all threats of, disowning and all that. What does the woman do in this situation? She's willing to leave because she came in as probably a second or third wife and discovered that now she wants to go back to the sacrament, or she wants to be enrolled as a practicing Catholic. She has children, and everybody tells her, because of the children, you have to stay back and things like that. What becomes the fate of that woman? That is one question. Then the second question is, a couple, this one is practical now and it's ongoing.
a couple got married, probably out of deceit, because the man did not actually tell the wife that he is impotent. And now, after like 3 years of marriage, she got to discover that, and he is not ready to remedy it. So he turns violent at home. And so, even though the marriage is with the tribunal now, but because of the process in the tribunal, I think the lady decided to go to court because they did the registry marriage as well as the wedding. Decided to go to court, and the marriage is right now in court. What really is the fate of such a marriage? Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Mrs. Rose. These are practical questions. I'm glad that you people are raising these practical issues. What we are doing is not being theoretical. I'm happy. Uh, Let me take the second one. Let me begin with the second one. Now, this is the case of impotence. It is the case of deceit. Uh, Thank God that I heard that the case is in ecclesiastical tribunal. Probably the reason why it is taking time is that the tribunal has not gotten enough proof from the parties. I mean, from the witnesses, the marriage witness, because once a marriage case is sent to the tribunal, the witnesses we'll be talking about now are usually being ask some questions, they say what they know about the marriage and all of that. Probably that's why it's taking time. But uh, the church has made law that no marriage case should even go beyond 1 year. Pope John Paul II, in his discourse to the Roman Rota, the judges in Roman Rota put it clear that when it comes to declaration of matrimonial nullity, it should not go beyond a year. There shouldn't be unnecessary postponement. Anyway, that's by the way. So the question is, what will now happen to this kind of marriage? There definitely there is deceit, and without deceit, there there is every possibility that that marriage will be declared null. No marriage existed because the woman was deceived. The man didn't tell her about the impotence. Okay, she entered into the marriage in that deception. Now that she has discovered what will happen, what will happen, definitely she has to wait for the declaration of the ecclesiastical tribunal before she proceeds. At this point, before the tribunal gives its sentence, she can't go and remarry. Sorry, she can't go and enter into another marriage. Yeah, remarry. For one to enter into another marriage, there has to be the declaration of the matrimonial tribunal. With that, it will be recorded in the person's baptismal certificate. The person will now go into another marriage. That's what I see about what she can do. She has to definitely wait. Now, after going to the civil courts, assuming the civil court says that, divorce and all of that, say no marriage, she still has to wait for the declaration of the ecclesiastical tribunal as a Catholic. That is the tribunal that has jurisdiction over her marriage and not the civil courts. Okay. Uh, we continue to pray for people in that situation, and we continue to pray for them, give them necessary support as Christians. The Christian community should be with people like that. With our prayers, support them so that they can overcome some of these marital challenges. Now, question number one, you talked about polygamy. Okay. Now, this person decides to pick this lady. She entered into this polygamous marriage, and eventually she wants to come back to the sacramental life. The family members are saying no, that she has to stay back for the. Definitely, she has to leave as a Catholic because the life she is living is incompatible to the Christian faith. That is not marriage. You are not bearing witness. Once she has discovered that she entered into a wrong marriage, definitely she has to leave. Now, the family members are telling her this because of the social benefits. Probably the family members are getting something from the husband. They are not using the lady to gain something for their own well-being, for their own good. Whereas the soul of this person is what is more important. The soul, the salvation of the soul is more important. As far as we Catholics, we Christians are concerned, she has to live her sacramental life. You can't cut off from the sacrament. The sacrament nourishes our soul, helps us to be ready for salvation. She has not been receiving Holy Communion all this while, no confession and all of that. So I will advise her definitely you have to live and amend your life, live sacramental life. Maybe the family might not be good Catholics or they are just a nominal Catholics. Every Catholic family will advise, we give this advice, this Christian advice. Your salvation is more important. Now, your children, it doesn't mean that when you leave, you abandon your children. No. It doesn't mean that when you leave, you abandon your children. Of course, you give them necessary support. Definitely, the children will be with the man. Maybe she's having double mind. Hey, my children, I'm going to cut off from my children or what? You know, it can be done in a way that once you live your sacramental life, eventually get married, have your own family, you still go and see your children. Your children will come and see you. But I don't support this idea that you discover that you're in a wrong marriage, you are in a wrong union, you are in a sinful union. I mean, you still continue that way. No, you have to amend your Christian life, go to confession, receive the sacrament, live a good Christian life. That's our faith as Christians, as Catholics. So that is it. Definitely, she has to leave that marriage and live a good matrimonial life, live a sacramental life. All right, so we have more hands. It's becoming more interesting. You people don't want to go and sleep. Oh my God. Mr. Anthony, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Father. Good
Probably
evening,
be the
Father.
last person tonight. Good
Good evening,
evening.
Father, and good evening, all. Please, arising from the case you just discussed now, I'm wondering, why did it take 3 years to say that the man is impotent? I remember yesterday we said that there's a difference between impotence and being infertile.
Era.
And infertility is not an impediment to the validity of a marriage. So in this
All right.
particular case, is this actually impotence or is infertility that is the issue here? Perhaps that is one of the reasons why the tribunal is taking time to really look critically into the issue before taking a decision. That's what I think. Thank you, Father.
Mr. Anthony, that's good. I feel like clapping for you. Thank you very, very much. That's a very good dimension to that. That's a very good dimension. I love that. You are really learning something from this workshop. Please, who asked that question, Mrs. Ndu Agoba? Now, back to you. It didn't even occur to me what Mr.
No, I was
Anthony
the
said
person
now.
that asked the question.
Okay, Mrs. O, you said that good. You said that the man was impotent for 3 years, and I heard you mention that they have children. Hello, Mrs. Rose.
That is the other question. They don't have any child. It is the second person the second question that has
Okay,
children.
all right. So, okay, they don't have any child, and they have lived for 3
No.
years. You mentioned 3 years
Yes,
too.
yes.
So
For
now,
3 years.
good. Now, in that 3 years, it means that no sexual cooperation, no sexual marital sex now, because you talk of impotence. Remember our definition of impotence yesterday? Canonical understanding of impotence. Do you remember? Impotence, from canonical point of view, means that the man doesn't achieve erection, no penetration, no ejaculation. So if any of these three elements is lacking, you say that there is impotence. So it could be that what you're talking about is infertility, sterility,
No,
and not
no,
impotence.
no. It's impotence I'm talking about. I know the difference. The
So
reason
for
is
three
because
years,
each time, yes, each time he was always having excuses when it comes to bedtime. And at first she dismisses either he is doing one prayer thing, or he is traveling, or he has one excuse or the other
for 3
all the while.
years.
And she didn't take it serious. She didn't take it serious until when she now started asking questions, because she started seeing some behaviors, and she started asking questions, and then it turned violent. The parents tried
So,
to intervene, but he wouldn't budge, and gave a decree nobody should come to his house, even from his own siblings.
all right,
Nobody should put
it's
his
okay.
mouth.
Oh, all right, it's okay. So since it's at the tribunal, it is better that the tribunal handles that. What made me to be curious is for 3 years, you marry this person, first night, no sex, second night, no excuse. The person has been given excuse for 1 year, excuse for 2 years, 3 years, and after 3 years, you are not beginning to talk after 3 years. So the tribunal will make the investigation to see the outcome. There may be other things you might not really know in that marriage issue and all of that. So, but it's okay. The marriage tribunal will give his declaration on that. All right, friends. Someone puts a note here. Father, my understanding is that there is a difference between sponsors and witnesses. In the marriage ceremonies I have attended, the sponsors are always married Catholics, while parents, relatives of the party stand as witnesses. The faith of those parents, relatives, friends doesn't matter, all of that. Of course, it is in line with what we are saying. We are talking about witnesses now, not sponsors. The law does not talk about sponsors. Canonical point of view. For validity of marriage, only witnesses. So the one of sponsors, like I said before, could be practiced based on the local customs of the place. And we talk more of that in Africa, in Europe and other places. I don't think they talk more of sponsors. I haven't heard of it in where I am and all of that. But note that without sponsors, marriage goes on. It has nothing to do with validity of marriage. But where there is a custom of having sponsors, it is good to, it is good to follow the local custom. It is recommended and all of that. So thank you, Mr. Kajitan, for that input too. It has been a wonderful night, friends. At this point, we come to the end of our workshop on canon law and marriage. I now call on Mrs. Eugenia Essel to give votes of thanks, if you don't mind, to give votes of thanks, Mrs. Eugenia Essel. You can unmute yourself. Are you there? Now, before that, I would like to get feedback from one or two persons. How has it been these past 2 days? Do you think it has been wonderful? Do you think it's something that we need to do once again sometime next year? Do you think you have really learned something? What is the feedback? This is the end of the workshop. It is good I get your feedback. Mrs. Selling Major 4. Okay, let's hear you. Feedback. Unmute yourself.
It's very, very okay. The lecture so far we had, the shorts, is very good. And then my own listing is attendance, because the first time they did not mark us. I'm waiting to see the correction. I did not see. The second time pass, the same thing. And we are still waiting for the attendance after this so that I will know my situation. But the presentation, everything is awesome. And the short is very okay. Your understanding is something. Very, very okay. So, and then in future, we will still like to have more exposition. There are still some part of the we needed.
All right.
But wait, Father, thanks so much, Father.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Lady Patricia.
Good evening, Father. Good,
Good
good
evening.
evening, Father.
Go ahead.
We sincerely want to thank you for this golden opportunity. It's been a long journey with you for some time, and it's very, very fulfilling and inspiring. These past 2 days have been wonderful. These are things that ordinarily would have gone physically to go and learn, and maybe sometimes pay big money for. And you gave us this opportunity where I think, from my own side, I've gained a lot. And I think a lot of our friends here have benefited immensely from this. We now, is an eye opener. We know more than we thought we knew in the past. So a repeat of it in another year will not be